Hey everyone, today I'm going to show you how to animate a button similar to this. So let me go ahead and refresh this. So you can see that we have the circle animate in while it's rotating, and then we have behind it kind of wipe across. So if you want something to reveal across, this is what you would use. Now this is using something called ClipPath. ClipPath allows us to create that kind of wipe from any direction. So we can have that come from the top, from the right as well, and we don't have to move the object, or we don't have to mask the object as well. That's where that comes in handy. So we're going to take this one step at a time. The first one is we're going to animate in that circle. So if you want to download the project file, go ahead and go to my website, learningdojo.ninja, and you can go to templates. This is not available here yet, but I'll have this same project file that you can download, and you can use that you can take a look at the code and everything that I've done here. So inside of that, you can see here in Storyline, we have our regular button here. Let me expand out the timeline so you can see it more. So we have an icon, which is a group, and that group has two different things. Let me show you inside of the folder here. So we have the icon back, and then we have the actual icon, which is this arrow. So I took those two different things and I grouped them together. Now you may be asking, why don't I just put the arrow as part of the image? Well, I could do that, but if I wanted to animate the arrow separately, I wanted to have like a little bounce or something like that, then that's where you'd want to keep them separate. You can still put them in a group to animate them together, but then you can still target that individual arrow to animate and have a little bounce or shake or something like that. So that's the reason why I grouped them here. Now the next thing is the group is our button here, our main button, which has the learn more text, and it also has the back button, which is just a shape with some rounded corners essentially. That's the part that we want to have it wipe. So it's as soon as the button is done, we're gonna have that wipe from the left-hand side over here. So let's take this one step at a time. The first thing we're gonna do is add a JavaScript trigger. So I'm gonna go into my triggers, and on the group, make sure you select the group. On the group, I wanna come in here and do execute JavaScript. Now in that execute JavaScript, I'm going to be targeting the group here. I can come into the trigger here, and then I can select this drop-down box, and it will allow me to select the group, but it will also allow me to select individual parts if I wanted to as well. Now I named the group icon, and I want to make sure that when I hover over it, it's not just the icon, and this is kind of confusing because I did the actual arrow as icon too, but I want to make sure that this is the group. So to avoid confusion, let me go ahead and just hit cancel out of that. And so let's just add a GRP for group there. Now let's add our execute JavaScript again. Now that's just naming convention. Anything that you name the layers or the group will help you when you're targeting the different objects here. So let's go back into execute JavaScript here. So I'm going to scroll down. Well, there it is right there. And then let's pop open this window. And now if I select this drop-down box, we have that icon group, just so I know that I'm targeting the right thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on add here. This will add our icon group here. Now we're gonna do a normal GSAP, and we're gonna have this animate from off to the side, and we're gonna rotate it. So this is where I can use my tool. I'm gonna pull up my free tool here, which you can get to by just coming into apps up on the top, or if you go to gsap.learningdojo.app, this will allow you to get to that as well. This just helps it so you don't have to memorize the code or write out the code. You just basically select the different values, and it will create the code that you can just copy and paste. So what I want to do is just copy in that code or that ID, come in here and create a new one, and we're going to paste in the object ID right there. Now we're going to name this one group, or let's just call it arrow. You can name it whatever you want, really, it doesn't matter. And if you wanted to save this, you can give this snippet a name and you can save it for later. But the first thing I'm going to do is have the X value animate to, and this is actually going to go from. There's two different options. You can have it come from a certain object if you want it to, like this is the ending point, I want it to come from this value, or you can have it go to. If that's the starting point where it's at now, let me pull this up. If this is the starting point now and you want it to animate different, that's where you would go to. But if this is the ending point and you want it to come from a different area, that's where you would choose from, which in this case, that's what we want to do. So I'm going to come up to GSAP method. I'm going to select the drop-down box to from. So now it's going to animate from the X value of 200. That's step number one. Step number two is I also want this to be like animate the opacity. So when I'm animating the opacity, I want it to animate from 0. So it's going to be completely gone to begin with, and then it's going to fade in. You don't have to do that, but that's a way for me to be able to fade it in, essentially. Now, the next one is I'm going to have it rotate. So I'm going to go into rotate, and I'm going to have it rotate from a negative 180. So in that negative 180, that will give it the rotation. And then I'm going to come into timing, and we're going to go into easing here. In easing, I'm going to choose power out or power 1 out. Now with easing, there are various different options that you can choose from that will affect how it slows down or how it speeds up or how it bounces and other things like that. This is just the one that I like that's just shows it that it's coming in a little bit quicker and starts to slow down. And that's where the dot out comes into play. If you wanted to the easing to happen at the very beginning, you would do a dot in. If you want it to happen at the very end, you would do a dot out. If you want it to happen at the beginning and the end, you would do a dot or an in out. Those are your various options there. We're going to do a dot out. I want it to slow down as it gets into position here. So at this point, all I need to do is copy. Then I can come in here and just replace that text, and now it has that circle animating in. So from here, I can just go ahead and click OK, and then I can preview that. And when I preview that, it's going to have that circle kind of fade in and rotate as it comes in from the left-hand side. Now, I can't remember if I did that as soon as the timeline starts. I may need to change that. So this is the key. If you see something like this where it's not working, then you look at when this trigger is actually happening. Right now, I think the trigger is going to happen when I click on it, which is the default. So you can see, yes, it does happen once I click on it. So what I need to do is come in here and change that trigger when to not be when the user clicks, but when the timeline starts. And so I'm going to come in here to timeline starts and click OK. Now, if I preview this, and I just wanted to point that out because I see a lot of people kind of get hung up on that, is the when does this actually happen? So you can see there, it's, let's restart it. So you can see it kind of animates in, and I could slow that down if I wanted to, if that's coming in too fast, but let's just go ahead and leave it at that for now. The next thing I want to do, let's go ahead and just bring up our execute JavaScript trigger again. If you click on just the JavaScript, it will bring it back up without you having to bring the trigger back up. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to target the button. The button down here, which is just labeled as BTN, we're going to target that, but we're going to do this a little bit different because unfortunately, if I keep it as an object, I won't be able to do this because it basically, it's using the Storyline API, the JavaScript API at that point, which doesn't allow me to do ClipPath. But if I use what's called a querySelector, it will allow me to do this next part. So what I can do is grab the ID, and I'm just going to grab the ID. Actually, let me hit cancel here. Let me grab the group and just right click and copy the ID right there. Now, if I go back into my JavaScript snippet, you can write this out if you wanted to, but I'm going to create a new one, just paste in the ID, but instead of queries instead of object ID, we're going to do querySelector. Now I can just copy that. That basically just allows me to get the querySelector. It's a little bit different of referencing, like talking. When I say reference, I'm basically saying talking to an object on the stage. It's just a little bit different, and it allows me to do this clip path. So let's go back in here, and let's go into our execute JavaScript. And if you wanted to add a comment, just so you have things a little bit more organized, what I can do is just say clip, or let's just say button here. So you can just add some text by adding a // All of this I cover in my JavaScript and Storyline course. So if you wanted to get better at JavaScript and Storyline, you wanted to learn JavaScript from the basics, even using AI will still help you. If you know the basics, it'll still help you get the exact code that you need to be able to customize this. All right, so I'm gonna hit enter and then just paste that there. Now, this is where I can start to add my clip path. This is a little bit different because this I need to animate the from and the to. So this is where it's gonna start from, this is where it's going to go to. I'm gonna leave the code down below so you can go ahead and just manipulate this, but I'm gonna walk you through exactly what I've done. Now, if you get overwhelmed by code, just take a breather for a second. I'm gonna walk you through every step. And this is essentially, if you wanted to create a wipe like this, you need to have where it's going to start from, where it's going to end to. And instead of, let me come back into the tool, instead of to, we're going to use the fromTo, where we're defining both of that. Now I don't have this next part in my tool, so I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste that. So let me copy this code and paste it right there. Let me make sure that this matches here. Let's name this variable btn, so it matches this right here, this btn. So this is GSAP animation, but we're adding two different values. We're adding the from, and where it's going to start from, and where it's going to go to. So the first thing we do is a clip path. Now the clip path is essentially, if we do inset, it allows me to define how much the inset is going to be on each side. Now these sides are essentially top, right, bottom, left. So the numbers that I add, I have to add it in that order. I'm not going to change the top, so we're going to leave that at 0. So you can see right here, the first number is set to 0. I am, however, going to change the inset of the button to be 100%. So it's going to basically just inset it. If I just want a 50, it'll just do half of the button, but I want it to go all the way in, so that's going to be 100% there. So that's why the second number I have 100. The third and fourth number are the bottom and the right. I'm not changing those, so I just need to leave those as 0. So once you start to practice that, that's really where you start to wrap your head around it. Practice that, change the values, preview it, make sure that you know, see what's working there. That's how you learn code, is essentially by just going in, practicing, changing different values until it becomes more second nature. It's hard to wrap your head around. Trust me, I've been there, but it is doable. And it basically allows you to customize and go beyond what's out of the box here. All right, so I'm gonna say where it's gonna end up next. And so you can see within brackets here, and opacity is gonna start out at 0. So that's the other value separated by a comma. It's gonna start out at 0. And then it's separated by a comma here. And I do have some comments basically say fully hidden, clipped from the right, and then fully revealed. This is exactly where it's going to go out. Those are just notes. Those are something that you can just add to say exactly what each line is doing. But I'm going to do a couple different values. So the first value is we're going to change the right to be 0%. So 0%, it's going to start at 100 clipped. It's going to go to 0 where it's not clipped at all. And so that's really what we're going from to. And then the opacity is going to go from 0 to 1. Now I can change different values of this is where it's going to start, this is where it's going to go to. So now I'm changing the other GSAP values, which I've talked about at length in my previous videos of delay, duration, other things like that. So you can see right here, we added duration. I want it to be a little less than 1 second. So I do 0.8. We have a delay. I want it to be 0.07, which is essentially I want this animation to almost finish because the animation takes 1 second. By default, that little circle animation, if you don't add a duration, it's just going to be 1 second. So I know that that's 1 second. And as that starts to finish, I then want this wipe to start. That's really what I'm doing there. So you can see here, the delay is going to be 0.7. And then we have an easing of power 2, which is just slightly different. We have that easing of power 2. All of this I've covered in my previous GSAP animation videos. So duration, delay, easing, those are all things that I've covered. We're just adding those values to this clip path. So clip path is really the only new thing that I'm covering inside of this video and talking about from and to. So you can see here, that's all I have to do. And now I can just go ahead and click OK. Now if I preview this, it's going to animate the circle first because it's going to delay that wipe. And then it's going to wipe from it's going to start the left, but it's going to wipe to the right as soon as it starts here. So you can see our circle and then we have the wipe. Now it does look like it's slowed a little bit because it's a little choppy, but inside a storyline because I'm running this on parallels. But I'm going to preview this out just so you can see that it looks a lot nicer once you preview it here. So it is out. I'm going to go ahead and just double click on this folder, double click on the story.html, and you can see that's a lot smoother. So I can adjust the timing if I want that. If the button comes in too slow or the wipe doesn't start soon enough, I can go ahead and adjust the delay, the duration, things like that. So that's how you start to create more custom animations and start to not just do rotation and movement, but also just wipes and have this reveal, or instead of masking, have an object come in from the left and have it kind of go into the clip path as well. There's a lot that you can do here. And this is just scratching the surface here. Like I mentioned, if you want to check out more, you can head on over to my website. And if you go into learningdojo.ninja, you can check out my course that covers everything from A to Z in JavaScript and Storyline. And so if you click on that, you can go ahead and sometimes I run specials on that, so make sure you check that out. But you can also check out other courses. If you're new to Storyline, you can check out courses covering everything from A to Z and Articulate Storyline 360. You can also check out my Vibe Coding Fundamentals course. You can check out my AI Assistant and Storyline course. You can check out my XAPI Fundamentals course, my Articulate Rise course, and my Custom SCORM course. If you like this video, head on over to my YouTube channel, click the like button, subscribe to my channel, as well as hit the bell notification so you get notified of all future videos as they come out. That really helps my channel, allows me to continue to create videos like this to help you go beyond what's out of the box inside of Storyline and to customize even Rise and other things like that. That's really the goal of my channel, is to help you get more out of these e-learning tools. Now, I am going to show this in an upcoming video, but I'm also going to show you how to use a typewriter effect. So we're actually going to take the animated button and we're going to typewrite out this effect of our text. Make sure you subscribe to my channel if you want to see how to do that.